Hey everybody, it is Seth Apter. I am back for Mixed Media Tuesday number 2. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I am very excited today. I'm always excited when I have a chance to connect with you all, and I'm extra excited when I get to connect you to a new release. And that's what today is about. Today is about a new release of stamps from PaperArtsy, one of the companies I work with. And more than that, it's also about a demo using the new stamps and a lot of different things. So I'm hoping that you'll all stay here, get a cup of coffee, some iced tea, a snack. We got about an hour of intro to these new products and to the demo. I want to send out a big shout out at the very beginning to Janine. She is here behind the scenes. You're going to see her pop up in the comments. She'll help me with tech, leave different links, answer your questions, and just be an all around amazing person. And then I also want to thank all of you, each and every one of you who are showing up for me as you always do. And today you're showing up for me live. If you are here on YouTube, welcome. If you are here on Facebook, welcome. Please, let's make this a conversation, not a lecture. No one wants a lecture. We want to chat. Kind of like you're in the studio hanging out with me. I'm pretty good at keeping up with the comments, but if I miss a question and somehow Janine doesn't catch it either, which is very unusual, then please write it back in there and I promise you I'll answer. And if you're watching on recording, just know that I may not go back and see your comment. So if there's some question you have or something specific you need, please message me or email me. So thank you, thank you, thank you. If you're completely new to me, can't imagine that. But if you are and you're here, just you can find out everything you need to find out about me at sethapter.com. Well, at least when it comes to the business stuff. And also, a lot of what I'm going to share with you today is in my shop, which is also at sethapter.com. You can check it out. And thank you again for supporting me. I'm going to take a couple minutes to welcome everybody who has left a comment and is here live. And then I'm going to get serious. I'm going to share with you the new release from PaperArtsy. It's 8 new stamps. And we're going to go through a demo. And I may not seem as friendly as I always am because I know that there are many people who are here for the demo. And they want me to stay focused and not stop in the middle of spraying something to say hi to 35 people. I mean, that might happen, but I know some of you don't want that. So let me welcome you, Bonnie and Teresa, Southern California, Detroit in the house, Karen, down from Texas, Annie, thank you, Louise, she's over in the UK, Linda and Jane, Charmaine, Loie from Western Mass, April, welcome, Wendy from Melbourne, Grace made it, Linda, sounds okay to you? Excellent. Hey, Donna, Christy, Scorpio girl from Utah, Jackie, Linda, Lois, Kim, Langley, BC. I love that. Haven't been up to British Columbia in a long time. I need to get myself back there. Kim from Southern Virginia, Deborah from Arizona. I mean, loving this, loving this, loving this. Hey, Ann. Now, if you haven't seen me in a while live, here I am. And I'm probably in a better resolution because not only am I now streaming through StreamYard so I can show up at the same time on YouTube and Facebook, but I got this, see this little black guy right here? This beautiful dock cam. It is high resolution and so much better. So you all seeing me and I'm not so embarrassed to actually put it on YouTube and expect a flood of comments about how you can barely see what I'm doing. So I'm working on the lights. I'm going to move the studio around, I promise. And then we will be primo and good to go. Welcome, Kyle. Hey, Deborah. Hey, B3 Barbie. Karen from Lancashire in the UK. Excellent. All right. So much clearer. I know. I can even see myself. Of course, that means that, when I'm on the big screen, all of you people on YouTube put me on your 37 million inch TV. You can kind of see everything. So for better or for worse, you can now see it all much more clearly. All right. Hey, Rhonda, welcome. We're going to do the 30-second countdown, which if you know me, could be anywhere from 5 seconds to 30 minutes. But we're going to shift gears. We're going to shift cameras, and I'm going to take you through this release from PaperArtsy. What I do want to say is I would love to hear feedback. So if you see a stamp that's your favorite, let me know. If you see a stamp that for some reason you think should have been made differently, let me know. If you have any questions, any ideas, any comments, any thoughts, let me know. I'm really open to that feedback. I love community. You guys are my community. You are the best peeps anybody could ask for. And I feel phenomenally fortunate to have you all in my corner. It's endlessly amazing to me. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Loie's in the background when I need to have her set up for a drum roll. I know she'll do that. And anyone else can join as well. Hey, Patty, great to see you. And Louise says, okay, I still find it amazing. I can see, hear, and communicate with you live, UK to New York. It is incredible. Many of us, most of us, let's be real, didn't have this when we were younger. We had the Jetsons. Remember the Jetsons? That cartoon that had the video phone? How crazy was that we would be able to see people when we spoke to them? And now we have this. So it came true. All right. Will I be taping the rearrangement of my studio? Is a question. I hadn't thought about that, but perhaps I will, and then speed it up, because I think it's going to take me a while. And I don't know if anybody really wants to, spend an hour seeing me move a bookcase with all the stuff in it, rather than take all the stuff out of it. And Loie is setting me up with the drum rolls. Thank you. Hey, Anna, great to see you. All right. So we're going here now, my friends. We're going here because Mixed Media Tuesdays, my second one, is all about this new release from PaperArtsy. Those of you who don't know PaperArtsy, PaperArtsy is an amazing company that is run by Mark and Leandra, who are Kiwis from New Zealand, established it in the UK for the longest time, and during the pandemic moved to France. So they are worldly, my friends. And they have a number of designers who create stamps and stencils and tissues and paints and tints. If you don't know what tints are, you're going to know by the end of this. And I am so fortunate to work with them for quite a number of years now, releasing stamps, paints, and tissue. And today it's all about stamps. I have sets with them, and I have these minis. I have now released 8 new minis. They came out today. They are live in my shop at SethApter.com. Ding! But you can also get them at shops worldwide, all independent stores, online and brick and mortar. And we have 8 new stamps. And I have 56 total mini stamps, not to mention 40 some odd plus sets. So just to make sure you heard that right, Mixed Media Tuesdays is focused on my stamp release, but we're not just going to share and show, we're going to demo. And Jane mentions, and I think this is true, that the stamps from PaperArtsy, they're very good quality. You can see these have ink on them, but they're red rubber cling, very, very deeply etched. Really well made, I have to say it. Okay, so let me just take you through quickly and show you all 8. Then I'm going to take you through a little more slowly and show you all 8 again with some examples of how they were used. And then the fun will begin with our demo. So this is EM 105. For those of you who don't know the lingo, EM stands for Eclectica Mini. Eclectica is the group of artists who design for PaperArtsy. It even says Eclectica right there. Number 105, it's the 105th mini stamp, although again, not all of them are mine. So this is 105. I'm not going to tell you about it. I'm just going to show you the visual. This is 106. And I want you to keep track of the numbers because I really, really, really do want to do a straw poll. I don't even know what that means, straw poll. I know someone here will probably tell me. I know Janine knows. Why do they call it a straw poll? But a poll as to which one your favorite might be. 106, 107. And note that I am tipping just so this isn't so boring as just to see the still image. I don't know if that helps or makes you guys dizzy. Number 108. All right, we got one vote for 107 being a fave. 108. 109. They call them mini, by the way. They consider these credit card size just to give you a headset of the measurement. And you can also see it based on my hand, but you know, if my hand's not in an image, when you see a picture online, you have a sense of the scale. 110. We got 2 for 107. I'm not going to be able to keep track after a while, although with only 2 votes, pretty easy so far. 111. And last but never least, 112. Now, Scorpio Girl on YouTube said that was her favorite, but I'm not sure which one she meant. And Kim said 108. Jane said 111. Now, I just want to remind everybody who's watching live, if you just join me later or on recording, this is going to both YouTube and Facebook at the same time. So if I reference the name of somebody and you don't know what I'm talking about, it's probably on the other site. I'm going to do my very best to reference the question before I give you the answer. We have 108, 110, 108, 109, 110, 11, and 12 from one person. Now 112 is my fave, 108 and 110, 112, 111. I don't know if the faves are the later ones because, you know, that's what I showed you more recently, or if they're in fact just better. Oh, we got 107. All right. So far, I got to say, I don't want to say it too loudly because I don't want any of the stamps to feel badly, but nobody has a favorite of 105 or 106. I think I might demo with 105 today to change your mind. Okay. We got a 105. I don't know if Wendy said that because she heard me and didn't want 105 to feel badly. You know, it's all about equal love, right? Got to put it out there. But it's really interesting and to see which ones that resonate with you all. I will say that when I design stamps and any other products, I don't base my design on prior sales. I'm aware of that. But for example, if in this release, say a circle sold really well, that does not mean you're going to see 1,001 circles from me for the next releases. It's all about what I'm using, what I'm doing, what I'm making, and what resonates with me in that moment. It's so important to me that whatever I put out design-wise, it's really all about what I'm using, what I'm feeling. It is not about, I got to get a bestseller. You know, I'm not going to be upset with a bestseller, mind you, but all right. Annie says 105 is your second favorite. Yes, Annie, that helps tremendously. And I love when my peeps are honest. Charmaine says, I can't figure out what 105 is. You will soon. Promise you, promise you, promise you. Okay, so let's talk about 105. Very quickly, I can get to that because it's the first in the series. 105 is from a photograph I took many years ago in the Pacific Northwest. Shout out to Langley. And it resembles a series of tags. And in fact, it was a series of paper that was pinned to a board. And you can see that there's gaps in the middle. That is a classic aspect of my stamps. I like to have these gaps so that that's A, you can see the background through it. B, that's B, you can add your own color. C, that's C, you can add marks, letters, numbers, or symbols to it to make it your own. Annie wants to know, and it's a really good question, do I still have the photo that inspired 105? I think I might. I may have to dig deeply to find it, but if I do, I'll post that on Facebook and in the YouTube community and share it side by side. Oh, Louise says they remind me of tea bags. Maybe I am English because you're English. Well, it's all about tea with me. You know, I like coffee, but it's iced tea. It's always iced tea for me. So yeah, maybe I channel tea bags without even realizing it. All right, but let me show you some stuff. So this is 105 stamped with a black ink pad and then filled in with color. And this is the key to answer the question as to what this is. It could be anything, but for me, it is one of my wonky, spelled W-O-N-K-Y, swatching stamps. I love to swatch products. I find it helpful so I know what the products look like and I have a quick reference. I find it very zen to color in. It's kind of like a coloring book. And I think it just kind of looks cool. So in a journal, a swatching journal. So I have spent a lot of time with PaperArtsy creating random stamps that I think of as swatching stamps. They're non-traditional, but that's what I use them for. So here's an example where I swatched some of my dye sprays, which we're going to use later today. And I also want to use and encourage you guys to use stamps in different ways using different products. So this is traditional in the sense that the black ink you see there is from an ink pad. But what I also do is use my sprays, cue the spray, and I spray on my ink pad so that I get this watercolor effect, which I just think is also really beautiful. And then, of course, I had to make some art. So this is my example of using that stamp in an artwork. This is the same size as all the art you're going to see today. It's 5" by 5". It has backgrounds that were made with my PaperArtsy paints and a gel plate, and then it uses other things. So this is collage and stamping. This, by the by, snuck in. That's the edge of that. And then this beauty right here is from an older stamp from PaperArtsy, but this is the star. So this is an old vintage envelope collaged, and I really used that because it resembled the shape of the stamp, and I thought that echoing that was interesting. And then, of course, it has a little secret note tucked in there. And then you can see, instead of showing the background only, because it's so plain, I added the random numbers. Question came up, a really good question. May I ask what adhesive you use for collaging? Yes, you may. I use primarily 2 adhesives, and always know that I count with my fingers, apparently. So the 2 adhesives I use matte medium, fluid matte medium, and that brand that I use is Golden. I'm very brand loyal. I find a brand I like. It doesn't have to be the best brand or the most expensive, but Golden, translucent, low gloss, acrylic extender, matte medium, collage number 1. Number 2, and this might surprise somebody who doesn't know me, but I use glue sticks. And I use a glue stick that I think is a good glue stick. This is Avery. You don't typically find this in a craft store. You find it in a shop that is like for office supplies. And it's washable, it's acid-free. Acid-free doesn't concern me. But if it's a good glue stick, it works like glue. It actually is glue. And my secret tips for this, for those of you who don't know or haven't heard before, is that glue sticks work best with heat and pressure. So once you put it on and you cover every bit of the surface, not a little dot in the corner or an X, you then place your piece on and you rub it with your finger. Your finger gives pressure, which activates the heat, the glue, because it is solid, and your finger gives the heat. So the heat and pressure really makes it stick well. What I also like to say is, if you're in a shop and you're at the checkout counter and you see a box of 50 glue sticks for 50 cents, step away from the glue sticks. Brands that aren't very good might as well just be called glue non-stick. Okay, so thanks for that question. All right, let's move on to the next stamp in the set, which is 106. 106. 106 is circles as well. It's wonky circles. It's something I've gotten away from because I've been using mostly random marks, but I do love a good circle, and I love a good circle that's very wonky and irregular and concentric with multiple lines, different thicknesses, with blotches and X's and blats and splats and all kinds of things like that. And again, the classic Seth stamp. It's got gaps in it so that either the background shows through and or it has room for elements, whatever those elements may be. I started you off with numbers and some lines and X's, but you can do anything in here. This could actually be almost like a crossword puzzle filled in with letters and words or different colors. So we got 106. This is my example stamped with a black ink pad and then colored in with some of my dye sprays. I chose the brighter ones. I use my dye sprays often like watercolor paints with a paintbrush, not just as a spray. And then when I use the dye sprays as a spray, you see it's a little bit looser, and as someone said earlier, imperfect, which is what it's all about for me. And then in the artwork, I used this front and center as the focal image. I'm very abstract in my work, and I use these kinds of stamps as the abstract focal image. And so that's there, it's highlighted. I added a little bit of color so that it would be brighter and it would draw the eye. And then mostly you can see the background through it. I added some more numbers, added a little bit of an element here, and I added these lines for a few reasons. One, because it guides the viewer to all parts of the piece, but more than that, it takes this element away from just being like free floating, like it doesn't belong or it's unfinished, and it anchors it to the edges. And by doing that, it makes it look to me much more anchored, much more finished, much more complete, and not like just some random stamp. Now I could have gone further and I could have stamped this over and over and over again and covered that. So remember that even if you have a small stamp, you can increase the scale of an abstract stamp by stamping it many times. We're going to see that later in another example. All right, let's move on to 107. And if you're just joining me, you're going to get through this walkthrough, and then we're going to do a demo, which is really what the core of today is about. This is 107. 107 is more of the circles, but they're wonky. They're not perfect. They're concentric, but randomly. They're overlapping. They're splats. Literally, I'm saying basically the same thing as this. They're completely different, but they have some of the same core elements that make them so versatile and useful. And I always say, if you're going to spend money on a stamp from me or anything of mine, I want you to be able to use it in many, many, many different ways. Doing this is like my exclamation points. All right, so this is stamped with black ink and then filled in. This is with the dye sprays. Ooh, we got a lover of 107. Thank you, Linda. And Mary Helen, I agree with you 100%. Wonky circles are just total fun. This is with the dye spray, so you see it's a lot looser. I'm going to show you ways later to make it even looser with our demo. And then in the artwork, I decided I needed one piece that was just all about grunge, like grunge. There's just no finesse, sophistication here. It is grunge. So this here is stamped here and here and here and here, a little bit there. It's overlapping, different color inks, ink from ink pad, ink from the sprays, just a mess. And again, with this idea of scale, you can see if I stamp this everywhere, I would fill up this entire piece. And the fact that it's overlapping, the same stamp with using different colors and different materials gives it a sense of depth, which is cool. And how do you spell grunge? With a lot of R's, apparently. And hey, Catherine, thank you. I love walking circles too. And then just as an aside, I don't know if Janine is ready for this because I didn't tell her about this. Janine is here putting links in case anybody loves this, but this etc. This is from one of my alphabet stamp sets with PaperArtsy, an alphabet font that I made up myself. Okay, let's move on. Can you guess what's coming after 107? How about 108? 108. Let me explain 108. I mean, it may not be good if I have to explain it, but the reason and the method behind 108 is a whole notion of contrast. So I love a contrast. I think it makes art so much more compelling. And the contrast that I love the most is probably linear versus curvy, straight versus wonky. So at heart, at the bottom of this, you're going to see there's those bars. It's very linear, very, 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 very linear. But superimposed over all that linearity is all that curve, circle, splat. It's more organic, less consistent. So I love that combination. Now I want you just to notice that if you stamp it with black ink and then fill in the areas that are closed, which are the only ones I chose to fill in, you get that. Looks cool. It actually looks kind of a little, I don't know, can I say mid-century modern a bit? Wasn't what I was going for, but I kind of see that. And then if you use the dye sprays and spray, you can see how irregular it is and leaky it is. And again, I'm going to show you later how it can be more or less messy. Thank you. I'm actually going to demo with this stamp to show the many ways you can use it with just plain ink from an ink pad. It's very versatile. So I'm not even going to show you now. I'm going to show you after. But I am going to show you the artwork that I created with it. And I used it pretty true to itself. You know, if you look at the bottom, you can see that is that off the edge. This is the other side, just stamped at the very top. This is the edge stamped inward just a little bit. If you're going to look closely, you can see up here, it was stamped that way as well. And one of the things I really love about it is that when you use it underneath, and some people might think this is way too busy to then put a word over it, but when you put the word over it, doesn't it look as if it's intertwining in the letters? It makes it look so dimensional, and I love that. And the last thing about this particular stamp, the way I used it, is if you look closely, you may or may not have noted that I've outlined everything. This is a wonky stamp to outline, but I love a good outline. So you see the edge was outlined with a pen. I actually used, just so you know, a micron. Trying to find the micron I used so I can give you the number. Yeah, here it is. I used a micron, which is archival, permanent, and it works pretty well over acrylic paint in general, but it does work well over PaperArtsy paint because PaperArtsy paint is all matte and chalky, and it's O2. It's a very thin line. Oop, so thin that you couldn't even see it because I was off camera. Okay, but I outline with lots of things, pretty much anything. All right, those are the first four. I'm going to take you through the next four, and then we demo. Okay, so next one is 109. And 109, Leandra, who owns this company, calls it X marks the spot, which actually makes sense. I call it one of everything because it includes one of a lot of the things that I like. It's got the X. I love an X. It's got dots. I love dots. It's got circles. I love circles. It's got concentric, wonky, overlapping circles. I love those even more. It has linearity and the contrast of the curvy. It has some small splats. It's got a lot. got a lot. I could have put a lot more in, but I had to stop at some point because these are mini. So that is that stamp. And this is shown with black ink from an ink pad, filled in again with some of the brighter dye sprays. And this is sprayed with the dye sprays and just pressed. You can see kind of the wonky imperfection there. I'll explain again later how you get it less wonky and more wonky. Oh, let me leave these here while I show you the artwork sample. And I've done the same thing here, there. But what I really wanted to show off here was this notion of repetition, that repeating an element in a piece of artwork is very compelling. And then breaking it up by having it come off the edge makes it feel like it's continuing and going on. And then even more so when you use just a touch of it off the edge and mask some of it, you get something completely different. And I don't know, I've noticed this does look like the very top of a pumpkin. What can I say? That is 109. 110. Oh, 110. I love 110. I mean, I love them all because I wouldn't release them if I didn't love them, but some of them I just get pulled to. And what's interesting is the longer I have the set, any set, the more all of a sudden I find another one that becomes my favorite. But for the moment, this is my go-to, my favorite. It's a really good mark maker. It is hand done. A lot of my stamps lately are computer generated. This one's hand done with a few tweaks on the computer. Those gaps came from the computer. And I call it corrugated. So this is in keeping with the process I'm showing you, stamped with black ink pad with some color in between. This is just sprayed with the dye sprays. And what a perfect question. If you're using spray for these colors, how do you stay in the lines for such a small image? I'm going to demo that. So if I don't answer that question, Diane, later, ask it again, but I think I will answer it. But you can see that you don't really, whoops, sorry about that. You don't really stay within the lines. So when you spray heavier, you get outside the lines and you get that blurring, and I love that. Imperfect, 1,000 times better than perfect. Because let's be real, what's perfect and who wants perfect? And the art, the one time, no, one of the sometimes, occasional times when more isn't more. I love this background so much, I kept it almost fully as a background. I am going to demo this effect later, but can I just say I am truly, madly, deeply in love with this background and the textural effect it gives. And by the by, if you like that stamp, I'm really putting Janine to work today. This is also one of my PaperArtsy stamps. It's one of from my either first, second, or third, or fourth stamp set from many years ago. It's different colors, which I think is cool. Thank you all for the love. I appreciate that. I really do. All right. We have two more. So we are now going to go to 111. 111 for me. 111 for me is that contrast. It may not appear initially as a contrasting stamp, but that's the goal. It has these circular, broken up, wonky dots, but those dots are in very linear order. I call this lots of dots. I love the many uses you can do this. We've been talking in several of the lives I've done today about using it for stamping. Somebody talked about using this for French knots. I've talked about laying it down this way and using these as journaling lines. You can extend this as long as you want. You can use just one line and make it a border. You can use literally one dot if you want. One dot if you want. Here it is in black with some spray inks just for color. Here it is used just with spray inks. And then I loved it so much, I decided instead of using it loosely in the background, which is how I thought I would use it, so you just saw some sprinkling of dots, I just went heavy. And I made that the star of the show. They're mostly horizontal, but you can also see they're vertical. Again, another contrast. I think this one is going to be used in a lot of my artwork in a lot of different ways. Last but not least, we're going to go to 112. 112. You know, I have to say, although lots of people have been suggesting it's coffee rings, I'm from New York City, it's coffee. I don't know why people say coffee. I'm not even sure what they mean, but coffee. But it's not. It's iced tea rings because, yeah, if you know me, you know it's an iced tea a day, at least one, usually more. And yet I feel the need to take a sip now. So this is 112. It's an iconic image. Who doesn't love a little coffee cup mark? This is used with black ink, again, filled in with color, only in the areas that are complete. Here it is with some dye sprays. And then this is the artwork, which shows a few things. It shows how if you stamp once and then stamp again in different directions, you can create a much larger image. It also shows how it looks better when you outline it. So every element here from the stamp is outlined. And then it shows how these openings can be used. So these numbers tumble from there and some of the text gets generated from the gap there. All right, so we're gonna go to the demo in one moment. I am first going to, because you might have come late, 105, 106, 107, 108, 109, 110, 111, 112. These are released today. 2.5 hours ago, they became available. You can get them in my online shop at sethapter.com. Janine just put a link. You can also get them at stockists for PaperArtsy that are worldwide. They're all independents. You can go to the PaperArtsy site and there'll be a listing on today's blog post that I wrote about the release for shops. You can get them outside of the US or Canada, or if you prefer to buy them from an independent store and want to help keep them in business. Thank you guys for all the love, love, love. The demo is coming next, but before, I just wanted to answer a question that came up earlier. Would you ever want to share your process of creating a stamp, thought process, to finished product? That would be fascinating. And I think I would like to do that. You guys may know that I've just started a new series that I call The Art Salon. In The Art Salon, the first one I did with Robin McClendon the other day was special. There'll be more information soon, but one of the things I am going to do is within that, I am going to talk about different things. And one of the things I do want to talk about is I want to talk about designing products, creating products, things like that. Some businessy things as well. So look for that down the line in the future. Thanks for asking. All right, let's demo. We're going to demo, my friends. All right. And just be prepared with your snacks because I have a feeling we're going over. All right. So let's just start with 105. This is going to be a little longer than some of the other demos I'm going to do today. They're all mini demos using the stamps. So I'm just going to, and I don't always do this, but I'm going to place this on an acrylic block. I'm going to get an ink pad. I am using a specialty ink pad. I do not sell this. It is from Shashihata. It is amazing. It's a hybrid ink that's very wet. It dries permanently and relatively quickly. You can Google it and find some shops perhaps who sell it. Janine, I think, has a spelling and might pop it in. But I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to do what we all know how to do, which is ink up our stamps. And then I'm going to put some even pressure. And voila, for all you people from France, we have it stamped. Now, again, this was for an original photograph I took of this board that has all these notes pinned on it. I took out digitally the centers so that we could have those gaps. And what I'm going to do now is I am going to swatch. I said earlier that behind the scenes, the reason why I created this stamp is because I love a good swatching stamp that's not typical. What am I going to swatch? I'm going to swatch my tints. I've been asked to talk about my tints, and so I'm going to be able to swatch them and talk about them at the same time. I am going to go semi-fast, but we all know you can't swatch that fast. So my tints, what are my tints? They are a top quality, non-yellowing, water-based, enviro-friendly, UV-safe sealer. Basically, if you're using tissue, these are the perfect adhesive to use on the tissue because it adds color. It also glues it down. They are full-on transparent. They're not translucent. Paint that's translucent, you know, is going to allow what's underneath to come through, but it's going to add some cloudiness. These are full-on translucent. If you use them on black, they literally disappear. When you use them on white or a light color, they have the most gorgeous shading. They are much thinner. I don't know if you can hear the shake than a traditional acrylic paint. And they are matte. They finish matte, hence matte tints, the tints. These are the 4 new ones that just came out yesterday. There are 12 total. How ironic that I have 12 spaces. We are going to start to watch. How are we going to swatch? I use my gel plate as something to put my paints on. So I'm just going to put a little bit out, really just so you can kind of see it more. Normally I would just dig in right there. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm not going to wet it down. I'm just going to pick up that paint and I am going to fill in the center. So at the end of this, I am going to have a reference. If I had more time, I would then take a tiny pencil or a pen and I would write down what the colors are, but I'll recognize them. This one is new. It's called River Deep. River Deep. I'm just going to dip into water, dry it off a bit, and move on to the next one. Let's go with Ladybug. It's a learning curve to use these, I will tell you guys, because they're translucent, so you need to be aware of your background. They're translucent, so when you layer them, you can get incredibly interesting and different shades of color. If you let them dry and then go over them with the same color, you get a darker, richer version. So for example, let me just show you Ladybug. If I go back to River Deep and add just a touch more, I know you won't be able to see the before and the after unless you go to the videotape. But if I add another layer over that layer, they begin to get darker. So they're pretty quick dry. The more you let them dry, the more layers you add, the darker they become, which gives you a ton of options. And let's just do that again for the ladybug. Like magic. Takes a while to get used to a transparent element, but you can see that it's even richer already. I'm going to move on to the next one, which is greenstone. Let me tell you that when I first saw greenstone next to River Den, River Deep, I did recognize that one was a little bit greener, but I thought they were much closer than they were. This is the most gorgeous jade color. Okay, so let's see what this looks like. This is again greenstone, one word. I'm using an angle brush just to have a little bit better chance of filling in the corners, but really any brush will do. So now you can see what that color looks like. We got a really good question here. Barb says, so this is an acrylic that can be used for glazing like oil paint. This is not an acrylic. This is not an acrylic paint. It has a completely different medium. I want, in terms of a description, for you guys to think of it more as a tinted matte medium. So just like you would use matte medium as a adhesive for collage, you can use these tinted colors for collage adhesive, but you can use it for so much more. They work beautifully on the jelly plate. To lay these on the jelly plate and pull, you get the most soft, beautiful effects, ethereal effects from that, almost like a stained glass. We're going to go with the pink. I'm trying to be very careful about how much I lay out because I really don't like to waste paint or tints. I remember in the very beginning, no one knew, and probably still true, people didn't know how to pronounce it. Is it a matte tint? A tint? But Leandra, the owner of the company, I can't even swatch cleanly, said, just think about them, that they're your tints. They're my tints. So once she said that, I got it. You can see how bold that color is, especially because it is in 2 layers. And I could make it even bolder and darker if I wanted to add another layer. This one is ash, which along with the 3 in the top row are the new ones that just came out today. I'm tapping rather than squeezing because I have more control of how much comes out. Ash is a very soft gray that has a brown undertone. So it's cool, but has a little bit of a warm brown undertone to begin with, which is just interesting. It's ashy. And can I say that with a space this small, probably a smaller brush would have been smarter. But do I worry that I came in outside the lines? I do not. All right. We have Jam, another bright one from an earlier release. You can see how quickly it pours right out. These are very thin, very, very thin. Again, they take getting used to. All right, so you see the difference between Jam and the pink. It's more of a kind of a lavender cassis undertone. And the pink is pink. It pains me to even waste that much. This is squeezed. I love that. Kind of wish that when they titled it, they put in 5 more E's. Oof. Okay. Squeeze really wanted to come out there. All right, so that is squeezed. Going a little heavy there. Let me just show you one thing. This is black cardstock. I just want to explain translucency to you. Transparency, these are transparent. This is squeezed. Looks like it would be gorgeous if you were making, I don't know, Halloween cards. But because these are so translucent, you lay this on the black and it literally disappears. You don't need to change the settings on your computer. So be aware with translucent anything, you need a light background. All right, we got 5 more, my friends. This is Nutty. Nutty is one of my favorite. It may not have the shelf appeal that, say, Jam does, but Nutty is like a mahogany vintage dream. It will make whatever you have. So, for example, maybe your faux ledger pages, it will make it vintagey, a little grungy, a little dirty. Love that color. But can I say that the secret sauce that does that as well is Glow. Glow is like a gorgeous ochre that warms everything up. Everything. I mean, it even warms me up. All right, so if I do ochre, you know, it doesn't seem so dramatic, but building it up layer after layer on something that you want to make look either more vintage or warm. Oh, look at that. That is such a gorgeous color. So for example, let's just do a quick layer where I'm going to go with, I don't know, we could pick anything. Let's go with greenstone. And let's put a little greenstone on this sheet. And then let's bring some, kind of let it dry. That's my effort at drying. And let's add the glow on top of it. We're going to add the glow to half of it. So the translucency works and it shifts the tone and it just brings in that just a beautiful sort of vintagey warmth to that. All right, let's get back to this because we got a lot more demoing to go. We got 3 more. I love Dragonfly. I love this blue. It's a bright, light, bold, beautiful tone. Light, bright, bold, and beautiful. Okay. Oh my goodness. Loving that. Loving that. And again, if I let it dry, which I haven't done yet, and I go over it, it just gets darker and richer. Beautifully. All right, let's see. We're going to leave that on there. I'm going to show you something else in a second. And then we're going to get Fern, which is a beautiful, soft, organic green. Very outdoorsy, very different than the other green here. It is a little bit of a gray green. It doesn't have the brown undertone of ash, but it is a different tone, as you can see, than greenstone. I'm going to leave that there. And then last but not least, we have Shark, which is yet another blue, but a different blue. So you can see the tones on the gel plate. What a mess of a swatch board. Did you notice that the sample I used for my promotion of the new stamps a little more clean? There we go. But what if we just got a little water and then we did this? Who doesn't love a little splatter, right? Gotta love a little splatter. Let's do that again, but change the other color. Just gotta love a little splatter. Got that. And then let's just end with the pink because we know that splatter is going to be bolder. I'm wetting the brush a little bit just to get it even thinner, just to have more ease at the splat. Okay. So think about this also. You need your splatter. You don't have to water anything down. You really could use them without watering it down. But I love that effect. And you know what's cool about this? Is that when you mess up on your swatching, like I did so badly, it wasn't really a mess up, but you know what I mean. You splatter a little and it looks like it's all done on purpose. All right, so that is EM 105. The question was, what kind of stamp is this? What would you use it for? And it didn't seem to be anybody's favorite. And I'm hoping now that some of you think, I've fallen in love with 105. Let's put that aside. We're going to shift gears completely. We're going to do a few other demos. They're all going to be brief. We'll see how long we go. Somehow, those of you who know me well know, if I say an hour for a demo, it's going to be longer. All right, let's see what we got. Which one should we do next? Oh, yeah. Yeah. Okay. I'm breaking out this, and I'm breaking out one of my favorite stamps of the bunch, which is 110. It's the kind of corrugated one. And the whole notion behind this is that you can use it loosely in a background, or you can use it very strongly in a background, or it could be a focal. It could be an edge. It could be, you could just take that bit, and I'll show you, and have that come off the edge of the piece. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this on this. And this is a background that I made with PaperArtsy fresco finished paints, some of my colors, and the gel plate. It's on cardstock, and it's just been adhered with a glue stick to a book board to give it some strength and heft. Now, you can do this one of two ways. You can either add it to a block or not. I'm not going to add it to a block. I'm going to get a bunch of different ink pads. Let's see. The two brands I'm using, because I know people like to know. This one again is Sashihata. And then this one doesn't exist anymore. This one is a Moonlight Duo from Moonlight and the Maker. The same people, KP, who put out the amazing foam stamps, used to put out ink pads like this. They're also a hybrid. I can't say anything, but stay tuned, because maybe something like this is going to reappear. But anyway, in any case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ink my stamp. I do not want something too strong. So if you have a very fresh, wet ink pad, which I don't, you go ahead, ink it, and then ink it off on the side so that there's less ink on here. But the truth is that this isn't overly wet, so I want that much. And I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to kind of randomly I'm going to ink it. So you see how I've done that? It's not consistent. It's not everywhere. I'm basically doing it until it runs out of ink. And do note that I am orienting it pretty vertically because I am looking to get the effect of some corrugated cardboard strips. I'm using a darker stamp, but it's kind of in the same family of tones. And I'm going to go over some of the areas I went over before. And I'm going to go over some of the areas that don't have anything. Remember what I talked about with the edging? Like, how cool is that? Just to have that in the corner. You know, if I wasn't doing this on a different piece, just having that bit, or how cool would it be to go off the edge just a bit and begin to create a border that way? But that's not really what I'm going for here. I am building up this sort of sense of corrugated feel, so that it feels that there's a lot of movement and a lot of texture. I am sticking with stamp color, ink pad colors that are all warm. I am blending my inks. You know, this isn't totally dry yet when I'm using another color. I'm okay with that. If you don't like mixing your inks, make sure your pads are dry. This one's a little darker, you see? So this one would have been better for me to stamp off because I'm just not going for an effect where your eye is pulled to that area. I want it to be an effect that's full on equal across the board. I'm going ahead. Again, if you prefer to have your ink pad mounted, you can. But as I do this, I'm just building. And I always say with layers, more is more, but it's little by little. You can't shortchange layering. Layering happens. Let's see if this is dark. It's on the darker side. I'm going to wipe off a little bit. You just have to build layers slowly and softly. And they're much more organic that way. They're not like one big mark in the middle that you then have to figure out how you're going to correct. You just keep going nice and slowly. And in doing so, you begin to develop this sense of depth and dimension. The little gaps in here, they'll show up in different places in the end, which I love. This one's a little bit more like almost a burgundy wine color. Not much of a drinker, so I'm not sure why I did a wine analogy, but I'm sure some of you know about that. Now we're doing a demo, so you know, I know you're all watching and I know you all have lots of things to do. So I am going a little faster than I would normally go if I was working completely on my own without the rush of knowing that I got lots of other things to do. I'm going to do a little bit more of that darker brown just to even this out and add a little bit of balance because again, it's kind of heavier there and it's very light there. So I do want to bring a little bit more of that to this area up here. I often say, you know, overthinking isn't good with mixed media, but at some point you do need to sort of step back and adjust. Be aware too, if you're using your fingers to press, you are going to get bigger spots like that. So you do want to sort of be more gentle and maybe a little swipey. Swipey's a word, right? So that you don't end up with, that's the focal point, because that's not what I want. All right, I'm going to go back. I'm going to make what I call a sandwich, which is going back to some of the original colors that I used and putting them on the top. So they're on the bottom and the top. And that really begins to integrate the piece. So you don't know where it began, where it ended, where it started, what was in the middle. It all just becomes this one little big layer. One little big layer. That makes sense, right? All right, so let's just stop here for the sake of the demo. And you see what I got. I mean, to me, this definitely looks textural. It feels to me like if I saw that, I might think if I ran my finger over it, I'd feel those tongue and groove nooks and crannies. It also, because of the colors I used, feels very warm and organic to me. It almost feels a little bit to me, maybe I'm the only one seeing it, like tree bark. Feels very nature oriented. I want to compare it to the piece that I made as a sample. You can see there's similarities. There's some different colors that I used. This probably looks a little bit more natural in the sense that there's the sort of darker splotty splotches. And this is really much more, because I took my time, strongly linear. I think they're both really cool. All right, I was going to do so much more. I'm going to shift gears. I may come back to this stamp, but I do want to move to another different demo. And we're going to use, if I can find it in the piles that I have here, we're going to use 108. And 108 is going to be used mounted. And I'm just going to use 108 in multiple ways on this little tiny 4" by 4" square of white cardstock, just to show you the versatility that this and truly any abstract stamp has. So I'm going to go back to black, and you can do this a couple different ways. You can be very particular about where you place the ink on the stamp. You could use a mask, or you can be very particular about where you place the stamp on the paper. I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to ink 1/2 of the stamp, and I'm going to use that and stamp it right here. Now, even though I stamped it that way, remember, it's abstract. You could end up having it that way, or almost like a drip that way. And in fact, I like when I do things like that with the idea of dripping, maybe I would take a pen and I would add a marker and add more drips to it on my own. You know, where I would just make some marks like that. So have it feel like it's kind of dripping down. But that's not what we're here for. I could then go ahead and I can use the other side of the stamp, ink that up. And maybe I'm not going to use the whole half. I'm only going to use a portion of it and press it there. So now I have that other element there, and I have the beginning of, I don't know what, maybe a garden of these abstract images. Maybe I would make this drip as well. You know, maybe in a bit of a different way than the one above. Now, what else can I do? Well, I could go ahead and I could ink half the stamp, but in the different direction. So instead of the top and the bottom, I could ink one side of the stamp, and I could go in from the edge like that and create that as a border. And I think that's pretty cool. And what's now come to me is this idea of maybe creating a border around all 4 sides. So let me ink the other side of the stamp vertically, or horizontally, I guess, depending on how you're holding the stamp. And I'm going to overlap it right here. So I'm really kind of creating my own design. And this is what I mean by making it your own. So by adding that element, I've added some detail here. Let's continue with that. Let's put that sort of curvy circle right there. And I've begun to build this whole little world that wasn't there before and wasn't necessarily meant to be there when I designed the stamp. Now, again, I want to highlight that I could also use a mask. For me, the best mask to use when I stamp is a Post-it. It has the non-stick stick, so I could just press it down there and cover the part of stamp that I don't want. Let's just finish this. I'm going to do this pretty quickly. I've inked the whole thing, so it gives me some options. I'm going to go there. I'm going to go a little further up that time. I'm off the camera. Sorry, guys. I'm going to go right there. I'm going to go right there. Again, I'm going to get an edge or a corner to try to bring some of that curvy. I can be very deliberate very deliberate, just that little tiny curve right there at the corner. And I think it might be nice to leave some of the regions not filled in, but not quite yet, because more is more, my friends, right? So again, I'm being kind of particular about what I use. I'm adding more curves there. I think I do need to add another stronger element coming in right there. I don't know. Let's see. Let's put that curve right there and overlap that other curve. And then, I don't know, should we finish it up or leave that blank? I don't know. I think I'm just going to finish it up. I'm going to fill it in at least a bit. Yeah. 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 More is more. Okay. And you know, I've just created something that, you know, didn't exist before. And really, this design was not exactly the design I designed. It allowed you to make it your own. And it shows you the versatility of this stamp. If I can find the cover. And you can use this process with every stamp. Now, of course, what do I want to do? I'm not going to do it because we don't have time, but I'm going to do it once. I'm going to get out my gel plate for my palette. I am going, oh, I may not even need a palette actually for this. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to dip into some of my dye sprays. Let's go with sunflower. And I'm going to use it with a smaller brush. And I'm going to use it like a watercolor. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to begin to fill in some of these areas with some color. And then build up the piece like that. And let's just use this and splatter this a little bit too, right? Because who doesn't like some splatter? So I could build this up with all different colors. Maybe I'll have a word in there. Maybe I'll leave that center for a collage element. But I think what's really key is the notion that you should use stamps in all products very widely, and you should make it your own and just go where it takes you. All right, last demo I'm going to show today. I had a couple more in mind, but they'll have to wait because we're already 12 minutes over. Is the dye spray. This will be quick. I'm going to get a different stamp than I've used so far. I think I'm going to use 107, the wonky circles. In what way is the special ink special? If you're talking about the ink pads, Linda, they are this beautiful blend of inks that they're oil-based actually. And the oil base in them, allows them to stay wet longer, which is great, but dries permanently, which is great. And bizarrely, because this isn't true with every oil-based ink, they don't really dry out. Now, I'm not going to say you should just leave your cap off for a month, but really, they don't dry out. And they just make really rich tones, and the colors too. I love the colors because the colors are not always primary. Not that there's anything wrong with primary, but I like those colors that are a little bit off. All right, so we're going to get this stamp 107. We're going to use it with dye sprays in two ways. I'm going to get my 4" by 4" white cardstock. I'm going to get two different colors of dye sprays. I'm going to go with Morning Mist, which is sort of a soft blue-gray, and Underwater, which is this sort of beautiful soft gray jade green. That's a little darker when you use it, you'll see. And I'm going to show you two ways to use it. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hold this bottle high up. It's really hard to do with my dock cam because my dot cam gets in the way, but I'm going to hold it pretty high up and I'm going to softly spritz, not too much. I know many of you have seen this. For those of you who don't, it's going to open up a whole nother world. It's a soft spray. These are matte. All the non-metallic colors are matte, which I absolutely love. It's just my preference. A soft spray so that when I go ahead and I ink it, like having a watercolor. It's translucent. They're pigment. I'm sorry, they're dye inks. Erase that. They are dye-based inks, so they're translucent and water reactive. There is a question of whether I sell these ink pads, and I do not. I do not. I haven't been able to find a source for them. All right, so this is when you spray with a fine mist. I'm not stamping on watercolor paper here. There was a question there. I am stamping on just regular weight cardstock, white cardstock. But you see how watercolor-esque this looks? It looks so much different than the strength of an ink pad. Now, my favorite is when you hold it, the spray closer, and kind of flood it. I'm going to do the morning mist at the top. I'm going to do the underwater at the bottom and a little at the top. The heavier I spray it, the more grungy the effects are and the more imperfect the effects are. So I'm going to go ahead, give some pressure. I'm going to move it over to get it on camera. And you can see how wet that is. And you can see the difference. It's like a completely different effect. Now I could let that dry. I could pat it out with some toweling, B, or A and B, or I can tip it and have it drip a little bit. I think I'm going to start by dripping it a bit to get that effect, which is just even a little bit more grungy. And instead of letting it dry, just so you can kind of see the final product, I'm going to tap it. When you tap it out and pull up, I want you to note it gets softer. I want you to see the before, the after, before, after. So it depends on the effect you want. Now, what am I going to do with all this? I have some excess ink still here. So let's, if I had my journal, I would work it in my journal, but let's just go side by side. You know, it's going to be wet because I sprayed quite heavy. So we're going to get a little bit of a different effect. But I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to kind of fill this in, fill this out. Do a little bit of sort of messy overlap. So I begin to build a bit of a grungy background like that. Never let that go to waste. And more so, I sprayed it on the acrylic block. I am so going to use all that. This is literally a frame for that stamp. So let's go ahead and frame it out. Let's just press it in. You can see what happens. It's soaking into the cardstock, which is absorbent from below. And it's going to give me that, which I love. I love, I love, I love, I love. And can I mention to you, I don't know if it's clear, but these very, very fine lines in here, which allow you to put it straight, they're not quote unquote printed on, they're actually dug in. So if you look very closely, you actually see the grid from the acrylic block. And I love that because it gives me that contrast, that linearity to the wonky wonky. We got a little bit here left. Let's not waste it. Let's just use it up until it dries and add some more of that drippage to that piece. All right. That was fun. I hope you had a great time. This was about two things today, Mixed Media Tuesday. It was about the release of my new stamps from PaperArtsy. There were 8 of them. In case you missed it, I am going to show them all to you very quickly, maybe in order. There's 105. There's 106. Got too much light here. Well, you get the idea, right, my friends? There is 107. That's better. There is 108. Got to find the sweet spot. There is 109. 110. 111. And 112. And to boot, it was a demo. And the demo did demonstrate these stamps. We looked at my dye sprays. We looked at the tints. But really, even though I was showing you these with my new stamps, all these procedures, all these processes, all these steps, you can do with any stamp that you have at all. And I encourage you to think outside the box, make it your own, go where the creativity takes you, make your mistake, don't get frustrated or worry about it. It's only paper, it's only ink. Build up over it, more is more, little by little, and just have fun and enjoy and the pleasure. Now, I want to thank you all for coming to Mixed Media Tuesday, my second one. My third one will be always the second and the fourth Tuesday of the month. Join me next month. You never know what I might have in store for you, but I appreciate you all so very much. Thank you for the positive response to the release and for just being here and spending this time with me. It is great. It is great. It is great. And if you're new, you now know that when I say the demo's an hour, it's going to be longer. Everybody be well, take care. If you missed the beginning of this, it will go on my live section in YouTube. It will go on my Facebook profile, and I will be editing this down, although there's not a lot to edit out because it was a good amount of demo, and I'll be placing it in the next couple of weeks on YouTube in a shorter version in a recording. Big thanks to Janine and PaperArtsy for allowing me to work with them. You all have a great week and a good weekend coming up. See you soon. Bye.